First, I love the audiences of the sports sector or even entertainment industries. I think they're much wider, and I think my artists, for what they stand for what they say, and for what they make, and how incredible their works are, deserve large audiences. Deserve to be inspiring millions of people, not two people who walk by a gallery.
Yeah.
And I think the second thing is also that through this, you have new revenue streams. And like you said, Serena Williams is not just a tennis player. She's someone that through that ad with Nike redefined what it meant to be a woman in terms of, how angry you could be. I always remember how rare it is to see our gender being angry, but also how loud we should be to be angry. There's many things we should be angry about. And the joy and the relief that you have when watching that video is when they lose a game and they just really hit that ball and they're just angry, but angry in a positive way. They just want to reverse that situation. And they just channel all of that energy, and it's so nice to see our gender represented that way. And for me, that made a huge impact as a female entrepreneur to see women who did that. And yet I was not aspiring to be a tennis player, but I was watching this ad thinking, well, I too can push a bit more. So I think, they have shown those talents that they are not just what they do. They are, like you said, the stories, the people. I mean, obviously, Serena Williams is an obvious one because she's got the most insane story. But therefore, they become role models at large that we look up to. And same for the value systems as well. And I see so much of that in our talents. I think they are role models for the same reasons. I think they are people that can inspire us and teach us so much through the challenges that they've endured and the projects they've made and the creativity that they have and the artistic vision that they have. So I see them very, very much on the same level.
Yeah.
And I just felt also that will solve a lot of the economical challenges that visual artists face, which is a lack of revenue and the lack of audiences when the art world is struggling to renew its audiences. So it felt like the economical challenges were meeting the social values that I shared. But yeah, maybe through my background, it's I never dreamed to be in a room that's just shared by a few people who think the same way. I dream to be in a stadium where everyone thinks very differently, and that conversation is weaved through all those voices, and that probably does make me a bit different from the art world. I will trade any exclusive party for that stadium moment any day, because it also makes you believe in shared momentum and shared experiences and shared values, and makes you so hopeful, I think, about human nature when you're part of those moments. And that's why I love public art so much.
Yeah. No, again, it's like, even talking about the athletes, they lend to so many threads, and all those threads lead to people coming in to enjoy those emotions with the person that they want to support in the stadium. So I think that's fantastic. But with the athletes or influencers, they have a level of sustainability in terms of money generating revenue, in terms of being making money. How do artists become sustainable now in this day and age, and for 2026 onwards?
Yeah, so we always care about credibility, visibility, and revenue. Those are our three metrics when we build the reputation of our artists. So credibility is making sure the sector validates your practice, and that will be through the right curator, the right museum show, the right art critic as well, the right alignment, that you're ultimately vetted for what you do. Visibility is expansion of audiences, which is what I discussed earlier. How do you go outside of the art world and through partnerships to really make sure your audiences are very varied, because those audiences are also your support network as a talent. So making sure that you've got all different types of communities that then will go and support you. And then revenue streams is all the revenue streams that we've created that were brand new for the sector, like entertainment deals. So we did the art for Apple TV for David Attenborough with our amazing artist David Pepper. We did the art for Netflix and in Paris, etc. Digital deals, anything from the AI Microsoft campaign with our AI artists and MTArt up to digital activations, brand partnerships, which goes without saying, is all types of campaigns and launch of brand campaigns as well, and public art partnerships, which, as you know, as an author and someone that publishes a lot academically, is the one that I see, I guess, the highest amount. I see public art as being something that can trigger change at a high scale society-wise. So I'm definitely a very core proponent of the value public art in our society as well.
Like talking about partnerships and artists who are very locked into their practice.
Yeah.
A lot of them are afraid to do the commercial work because the industry kind of shuns, or allegedly they shun artists who are too much on the brand side of things. Why do you think that exists, but also can artists do both?
I think when we started, you could sense that tension. I think, first of all, it has evolved. I think a lot of top artists have now partnered up commercially, and there's a lot less of that friction that there used to be. It's for many reasons. I think the model traditionally was built on exclusivity. By definition, everything I'm discussing in regards to audiences, when we started, artists were also not advised to post on Instagram because it could dilute the exclusivity. As we know now, it's very different, right? So I think there was a level of exclusivity that had to be kept. I think there's also a level of ignorance towards brand partnership. There's a strong thinking, and I just came off of a call with a different brand partnership that we are doing, that brand partners are directing the artist artistically, but they're not. And I think that's always, I'm sure that some brand partnerships can do that, but in my experience, they do not direct the artistic vision of the artist. They very much come in as supporters, as patrons of the artist. So I've never really seen a difference between a client, a art collector commissioning a piece, which happens a lot of the time through us, versus a company doing the same thing. For me, the process is very similar. So I think, of course, you have to work out IP rights and all these things. That they are extras that happens at the brand partnership level. But overall, I think it's very similar. And I think there's probably a degree of ignorance on how that runs. It just feels like you just sold out and some random creative director has told you what to do. Where, again, I don't witness that on the ground. Loads of the top creative directors have gone to the top art schools in the country. So they respect art deeply. They tend to even go to more shows than the average art world person because they care deeply about this. So I see a great deal of respect from the teams, from our clients to the artists. And I think, again, the art world is a very B2C. So B2C is just you sell to a single individual and hasn't yet structured itself or professionalized itself enough to do B2B, which is to a corporate. You have galleries still who are saying that artists should not sign contracts. So, of course, you cannot launch yourself into a brand collaboration if you're not going to sign a contract because, you need to protect your rights, you need to protect your IPs. There's so much you need to do. So I think we haven't been taught. I was at Central St. Martin's yesterday, and so many of those arts graduates have no idea how to close a B2B contract, right? And professors are trying to figure out how they can introduce them to this. So I think it's also lack of knowledge. And as always, something that we do not fully comprehend feels scary. But here I think there's a big gap of knowledge that's needed for the sector and art graduates in general to be able to mitigate that.
Yeah. And how do you think, brand partnerships are valuable to artists these days?
Again, we're a B Corp, so, I see that as storytelling that is shared. So to give an example, in October, the leading maternity brand, Frida, partnered up with our artist, Raven de Clark, on creating the very first postpartum sculpture. So postpartum, amazing, as you know yourself, is a phase you write in it, which is very taboo, right? If you were to put actual imagery of postpartum onto AI generators, it will come back fully modified, more sexualized, and, everything that is postpartum, from the veins to everything is changed, right? And it's a huge amount of transformation for the woman where, she's experiencing a crash of hormones, sometimes postpartum depression, 1 in 8, huge physical change. Not to mention men who, 1 out of 11 also have postpartum depression. So it's a very specific time when you just welcome that child. But it's absolutely not visualized. By not visualizing it, many women feel that, they're just a failure at it. Because, you just see everyone just snapping back and just having it all together. And then you're just left there with thinking, maybe I'm the only one who is experiencing all those highs and lows and condition, right? So, again, I think art is the act, and public art specifically, of visualizing something that could be a shared experience. Yeah. And through that, making people feel seen through this. So, we came up with that concept. It was also great because the brand was expanding into Europe and the UK. So for them to do that historical first could also change the perception towards the brand too. And it was a huge success. We launched it in Westminster and the Serpentine. There was 2 sculptures. We actually just published a paper with UCL on the immense amount of impact that this sculpture had. And that's 103 press articles, over 6 billion views. So that's a classic example where, Raven here has yet again made history. And I say yet again because despite her very young age, she was also part of the very first slavery sculpture park representing slavery in the US. And she will be on the International Slavery Museum in Liverpool at the end of this year. So she's very used to historical narrative. But you can see how we've gone beyond, is it a brand partnership or not? It's not. Is it a great story to pioneer? Did that brand come and support it powerfully? Yes, they did. And did all together they made history? Absolutely. And I think it was such pride for us to have done that.
And it's funny you've mentioned Frida, because I just remember we got a load of Frida
yes,
products. So.
The knickers, the pants.
Yes.
Well, actually, that sculpture did have the pants.
Okay.
So there's obviously no logos ever in brand partnership, but you see that's quite subtle. We work with many bodies of women because we wanted to make sure that, that woman was representative to all. Because, as you know, when it comes to healthcare, if you're skinny and white, you get substantially more supported than if you're not. So there was also an understanding of how do we not reproduce the existing biases. But she is therefore bare breast, one bit bigger than the other, which is very common when you breastfeed, and she's wearing those famous pants, and it was really interesting as well, commentary wise. Everyone was like, before it was launched, like, would men just like run to try and touch her boobs? And I was like, this is such a weird thing because it's not a sexualized sculpture. As you know, again, for having had kids, it's not a sexualized moment.
Yeah.
It's a moment where you just welcome life and
Exactly.
it's one of recovery. And as you can imagine, no man ran to touch his boobs. Like, men are not idiots, and it's always, and when we were doing all the surveys, so many men were just like, I'm so glad. Like, I saw my sister, I saw my wife going through this. I'm actually so pleased this is there. And it's one for a bit of hope for today to reinforce that I've only witnessed men being allies in all those projects. I haven't seen them climbing a sculpture and touching the boobs. I've seen them quite the opposite, feeling relieved that this conversation is out in the open so that they can also be better allies.
You've said things like, don't invest in art, invest in the artists. I'm very big on, if brands are working with talent, invest further with them in terms of different pockets of interest. Do you think brands are changing the way they're thinking in terms of their partnerships and developing things in more of a long-term basis?
I think it's less about the brands and more about the art world, where by definition, if you're B2C, you're more objects-driven than you are artist-driven. Obviously, by the start, because of most of what we're about to make has not been created before. So we start with the artists and we trust the artist's capacities and vision to execute on something that they haven't done. And a lot of the time, as you've heard of the Postpartum Project, something that have never been done before. So it takes trust into the artists and it takes trust into people. Just before I came here, as actually the whole conversation was about trust, because we're again launching into a very new way to do a full digital immersive experience with our artist Alch and that brand partner.